Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our second webinar on insect rearing. Today we will be having quite some great presenters who will share their expertise and their knowledge and experience and hints how to best rear insects and which challenges you have to address. First of all, some upfront remarks. The webinar will be registered and be made available in our media library. So please bear with us. We will take a couple of days to do the post production, and then we will post everything on our media library, and you can access it and review the webinar or share it with other people so they can, in case they miss the webinar, can recover and can read and listen to the webinar and the presentation. Overall, we plan to talk about 1.5 hours. The presentation itself will be as well being made available on our media library. So you've got everything you can as well watch there and find the webinar 1 in case you missed this one as well. If you have not registered, then you can still register for webinar 3 to 6. On our website, we'll find the registration links on the event page, and you just have to go there and you can register. So let's jump right into it, talking about who is actually here and about our agenda. Today we will be talking about a brief overview on the survey we made, and especially a deeper dive and introduction of the new website, which we launched 1.5 weeks ago. So you will see a lot of new features compared to the former website, and we have already quite progressed on the number of people registered. We will then jump to a presentation from the Danish Technological Institute, following on by Veda, who is talking about insect feeding, and Better Insect Solution, who is talking about overall solutions on BSF farming, black soldier fly farming. And then we will jump on to Viscon presenting about farm automation, and we end our presentation about talking about and continuing our CapEx OpEx cost discussion presentation today, focusing on substrate, which is a large cost factor in the insect rearing process. And we end up with a couple of questions and answers where you have the possibility to ask questions. You are all muted, just as a remark, and you can raise your questions in the Q&A section. You just need to click on top in Microsoft Teams, so you can enter your questions and we will find some time. One more important hint, every question that is asked in the webinars is as well posted in our forum. So if we cannot get through all the questions, we will provide the answers in the forum. So quick run through to the presenters. We have Mats Heinrich Juhl. He is business manager in a Danish Technological Institute. So he is as well working on the research side, and he will be talking about a bit more. But he has as well hands-on experience because he ran a black soldier fly in the past. So he is not only talking theory, he is talking practice as well. Then we have Gerrit Niehaus. He's the product manager from Veda. He will be replacing Jens Feldhaus, who unfortunately couldn't make it today due to other important meetings he had to attend. But I'm pretty sure Gerrit is up to the level of Jens and can well replace him, and he will talk about feeding of insects. Then we have Lars Hendrik Lau Heckmann. He's working in Better Insect Solution. He has a researcher background as well, so he's a biologist, but as well now running for Better Insect Solution, the insect business, and driving this forward, and has as well a lot of hands-on experience in building farms and the key topics that need to be addressed. Then we have Jasper van Dijk. He is the commercial manager from Viscon Group. He will be talking about automation solution, especially focusing today also. They provide a wider range of services and products. Today focusing on the whole processing of the crates and automation of the, let's say, the rearing factory. And the end will be Arthur Kühl. As I said, he is one of the co-managers, so he is he's my partner in creating and managing ento-connect, the network. We both have been focusing a lot in the last of the preparation of those webinars, and of course as well building our network and launching the new website. And you can well imagine, if you take a look on the website, that we have made a lot of effort to make it really user-friendly and to add a lot of value to these people. And finally, about me, my background, I'm coming from the consulting, project management area. I've been doing projects for over 30 years. But I have to say, just quite recently, in the last 3 years, I've been focusing on the insect industry as well, building ento-connect, but as well my core focus will be more on the financials, on the strategy of insect farming and maintaining the community. So I will definitely be the one you will hear contacting you in the future, like Arthur will be doing. Okay, so quick run through to our webinar, to our questionnaire from the last webinar. As you see, and I have to say maybe one small remark up front, we had a quite a large number of participants, which was turning around 100 people in average. So some people coming in, coming out. So the total number is much bigger, but let's say on average 100 people attending. They are coming mainly from Europe and Americas. Also, I have to say the number of replies in the survey is still too small to be really representative on the overall webinar, but I think it gives you a quite nice, let's say, tendencies on what we talk about. And as you can see on the right hand side, the focus of the people listening to our webinar are mainly interested in black soldier fly, which is the majority, and then a second number of people will be interested in mealworm, cricket, grasshoppers, houseflies, and others are much smaller markets. So as well from a provider side, definitely I think I would suggest you better focus on the first two groups, which is the larger markets in general. So talking about the experience levels of the people, you can see we have no newbies participating, but we have quite some people who are, let's say, early adopters, who are an early way in the fact finding on the insect industry. So this is perfect for our webinar. Also, we then in the series of the webinar will dig down deeper to address the second group of people, which are much more experienced, are already experts, and talking to those experts, I would be really, really happy if you guys can contact me if you want to be a moderator in our website to provide some expertise to the community, so to make a big step forward. Where are the people listening to the webinar? Where are they in a sense of project stage? And you see the large majority is currently in implementation, not saying about the size of the farm, so that can range between small farms or industrial farms. We have some people already running large farms, and then we have, I would say, a large number of people who are in the information stage or in early stages of planning and implementing a farm. And to finalize the findings, we have about the topics that interested people the most, and people want to get more information. And it's differently, I would say, the first 5 topics, which is, and today we will be talking about that, is substrate and insect feed. today's focus is reproduction and rearing, and we talk about in a next seminar about the processing, and then of course on the biology. So these are the key topics people are interested in, and of course the other topics are still important, but we can clearly see a tendency on those topics. Now let's talk about our website, and let me quickly run about through the new features on the website. First of all, we have the map. I think this is a great tool for you, where you can actually see all the companies and players. We are not talking individuals, we're talking, let's say, commercial players or research institutes, or let's say service providers in the insect industry. You can find them all on this map, and if you run a company, I can strongly suggest, after you've registered your profile, within your profile, you just need to go to the company section and you can register your company. And if you add in the more detailed information, if you add the address of your company, it will automatically show up on this map. So this map can be filtered, as you see the legend on the left hand side. If you click on one of these, actually you will only get displayed those category of company on the map, and you can zoom down on the map in the country, and then actually if you click on the marker itself, you will get on the right hand side the company information and contact information and so on. Companies, as I said, here this is the company directory. You can search, you can filter, and as you see on the top level, you can see all companies, you can see your companies you have registered, and as I said before, create a company. This is where you need to go to create your company and make it visible on the map. Not too much to say about, always to suggest the more information you provide on your company in sense of pictures and descriptions, the services and whatever you provide, that helps a lot for the community to find the right company and the right partner to work with. So the new section is a section that is actually filled by ourselves. Here we mentioned key things, key news in the industry. And if you have something you really think, which is maybe a report, a market report, or great news on funding, or great news on the industry, or great findings in the insect research, please just let us know. We have a contact section in our website. You can just contact us, provide us the link, and just make sure that you own this information, so we are not running into any kind of intellectual property issues. So we have a clear proof that you approve that we can post that on our event on our news site. And as you see, we as well provide our own news if something is new on our website, like the registration of the webinar 1, we will post it here, so you can go to the media library and see that. Events, same thing. This is the event listing, and you can see all the events that are coming up, sorted by the most recent event on the top. You can search for events, and here again, if you know and hear about an event, or if you have your own event and you need a bigger reach in the sense of attendees and things like that, please contact us via our contact form, and we will make sure we can list your event on this page so all members can see it. And another important thing which we added, which was not on our former website, is that we have the forum. And as I said up front in the meeting, in the forum, this is the place where you can raise questions. And this is the place where we, our experts, or other members of the community can provide your answers. So for us, I think this is the core where a lot of interactivity, besides you yourself posting on your timeline, like you can do it in LinkedIn. It's the same feature. You can just go on your timeline and post the stuff, and connected members will see that. But on the forum, you will find as well the question and answers out of the webinars. If you look for us posting, it's mostly the stuff from the webinars where we post the questions and the answers provided by our experts. But feel free, and I think that is really important. If you have questions, post them there. And if you are an expert, please take a look regularly on the forum. And if you see people questions, you may and you are an expert in this area, it would be very much appreciated if you provide some answers, so we can share our knowledge and we can drive the whole effort forward. Then we have a tool section. Currently there is one tool up, which is the conversion rate calculator. I will not dig into more detail because Arthur Kühl will be talking later on in his presentation. And then we have the media library. This is where we post everything which is interesting for you. That could be either some white papers and things like that, or in this case, to give you an example, already the webinar 1 recording is there, where you can find the recording, you can find the presentations, and the recording you can see the full session, or if you are only interested in a certain topic, you can just watch and see one topic on the webinar series. That's basically everything on the website. I will be providing a bit more walkthrough, real-time browsing on the website in the upcoming days. So just stay tuned on LinkedIn and hear that I can walk you through. So what is important message to take away? The whole community, and we spent all our time, money and things like that to provide a platform which is free for everybody. But we need your help. We need your help in the sense of getting involved and make it attractive to others, and it's more attractive to you and others if you are, first of all, a member. As I said, it's all for free, so you have no charges attached. If you connect to other people, and if you're a member and other people are looking for you, it's very helpful and suggested if you're not just putting your name and pre-name down without any description about your experience, the area you're working into. It helps a lot if you, first of all, provide a picture. It makes it more personal and shows the person behind it. But the most important thing is if you provide a short description in your profile, which you can do just going in the profile section. You can go edit and about information, and here you have the possibility to add a description, and I think that helps a lot as well to provide your location in a sense of city and country. And having put down this, I think that helps other people much more to see, if there's an expert in their area, if there's an expert in a topic they're looking for, because then they have a description and can see and connect to you and start conversations and exchanging, building a network. What can you do? You can search for other members and connect, as I said. You can, and this is another important thing, register your company. That works as I described before. You go in the company area and then you can create a new company. Same thing for the members. Not just put down the company name, please put down the categories for the company, meaning the areas the company is working, and provide as well in the about information area some more description on the company. And the most important thing, you need to put down the full address as you do it in Google, and it will be shown up on the map. And then, yeah, it's like any platform, any social network. Social networks are living from people socializing and being there, connecting to other people, posting news on their timeline, starting and contributing to discussions, and just being very active. And if you're an expert, as I said before, I would be really happy if you send me a mail or contact me through the contact form. We are still looking for people who want to be closer, let's say, members in a certain sense and work closely with us and come up with idea and get involved in talking about how we move forward with the platform, and as well being some kind of market makers in on the platform by providing more content and things like that. So that's it, and now I can hand over to the first speaker, which is Mats from the Danish Technical Institute. We can catch up slightly. I would like to hand over to Mats from DTI to start his presentation.
Yes. Hello. I hope that the sound is working. So thank you for that. And thank you for inviting me to have a small chat here. I'll try as best as possible to make it shorter so we have a chance to catch up. Quickly, who I am. I'm a former producer, as Bernd mentioned shortly, of Black Soldier Fly. And as well now I work as a business manager at DJI, focusing mainly on the Black Soldier Fly. Please. This presentation is going to be focusing a lot on my previous experience from running the company ento-connect, where I have touched more or less upon all of the areas, whether it's the reproduction, it's the rearing, it's the larvae processing or breast processing, sharing my experience and some of the pitfalls I see when you get started in this area. But as well, of course, some of DTIs. Our production was around 500 tons yearly, just so you have something to benchmark against. So quickly, the company ento-connect was located in the northern part of Denmark. It was an idea from me and my partner at Aalborg University to start valorizing waste products, waste sludge into oil, or more precisely bio-oiled. One of the first things we met was that, do you want quality or do you want quantity? So do you want to focus markets niche, low value, high value, low amount, or do you want bulk and low value of it? We quickly found out that you have to do both. So if you want to be insect producers, you both need to do a lot of volumes, but you need quality. We learned the hard way that the customers are really focused on you have stable output, that you have the same output each time. And I'll get further into this and in details how we come up with this and what kind of challenges there were in this regard. Another thing we thought in the beginning was that everything needed to be automated. But actually what we learned was that some of the steps was actually easier to do the smart manual way, at least as long as we were learning and getting more touch on how to do things. So we learned by doing and made also the whole process very, let's say, very modular in that sense, but I'll come into that later. And then maybe one of the biggest downs I can share is that we thought for many years actually, and we had a lot of big projects running on selective breeding, where we found out that actually what we were doing was not selective breeding, we were just doing adaptation. And that's really something that I would love to share and tell more about. That I think this is the area we need to focus more in detail, because there's a lot of potential, but there's not really been doing, I would say, enough on it. So definitely something we learned the hard way, that we were actually not improving the selection, but more or less just doing adaptation. So as I said, we went through the scaling all the way. We started with actually 3 kilos of larvae in 2015 and moved to the double by month. And we ended up having around 500 tons a year. And you see, this was how our crates looked like and how our stables looked. We had stables of approximately 600 square meters each. And one of the things that we learned is that you need to secure your feed. I'll come into that, because that was also one of the reasons why we felt as ento-connect. But you also need to take into account that sometimes you will have a stable half full for some reason when you're scaling. And suddenly you need to focus on putting heat into your stables instead of removing heats when it's full. So these kind of like very technical, but also low, let's say easy solutions sometimes surprises you. The way we designed our entire production was everything should be modular in the sense that we can remove steps and replace them with semi-automated solutions. And this was, of course, quite of a tedious process, but I think we learned a lot personally on that, because we have tried pumps from 5 kilos a minute to 200 kilos a minute and everything in between. And I think you learned a lot by doing that. And as well, I cannot share this enough. When it comes to feed, make sure that you secure your feed and make sure that you understand what is the KPIs and the business model of your feed. Because one of the reasons that we corrected into Mars was because we lost our main component to biogas when the energy prices increased. And you really need to have this focused in long term, because it's so crucial for an insect production that your feed is of course cheap, but it's also something that is very usable for the insects. Yes, so I'll just go quickly into this because it's of course not that much the focus today, but I just want to share it as well. We've mainly sold to pet food, and the reason we did that was that it was the market that was more open to doing this, and legislation allowed it. As well, that we needed to have something that was easy to get started. And this is just a quick point in Europe, is that when you do fresh or frozen insects, the legislation is just to have an approval or category 3, which makes it very easy to get started. As well as something that a lot of the pet food companies can handle just from the get-go. It's similar to other products they know already. And creating a stable, nutritional, environmentally low impact product is much easier compared to, for example, working with meal and oil, which we also did. But I just think that this area is maybe something that has been overlooked a little bit. And of course, some of the things that we as well moved into was how could we treat this fresh insect. And one of the things we did was, for example, doing slurries. And chop them, whether it was wet extrusion or it was dry extrusion, and separating fats from the wet material. But there's definitely something that if in another time I'd like to elaborate a lot more on. We did that, but as well removing the chitin and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to put it out there. And then there's the frass, which I think is of course, there's been a lot of legislation changes since I was producing, of course. But we actually launched these pellets in 2018, where before that we did composting and sold the frass to local farmers and made more or less nothing on it. But then we started drying it, pelletorizing and drying it again afterwards to make it stable. We need to achieve around 12% of dry matter water to be able to store it. And this product, I think, is really good. We had a really good business with this. And again, it's something, if you find it interesting, I'd like to share how we did it and what potential I think there is, because I think this is just the tip of the iceberg in regards to the frass. We can do a lot more to valorize it, definitely, in the industry. So yeah, of course, I have to say a little bit about the company I represent as well. So DTI, what I think is awesome about DTI is this multi-angle way of approach, that we can go from everywhere, from agrotech to environmentally. We can look at climate, energy consumption, material usage, and whatnot, and of course also the insect. Next, I'm so lucky to be a part of core team of 5 people that are very, very enthusiastic about insects, and we work mainly in the reproduction, the production, sensing technology, and as well our newly created superior feed platform, which is also something that we work very intentionally on improving this feed, both because of previously mentioned my previous experience with the feed is very important, but I also think it's very important that we start looking into lower quality substrates for insects to make the business model more viable. So I'll just go quickly through some of the service we do. Of course, we do reproduction. Last week we did an webinar in regards to the attractants optimization we have done, and this is something that we'll like to work more on. I think there's great potential both in creating repellents and attractants for the insects to be able to locate their eggs even more, or to isolate their eggs even more. And we as well, one of the big focus at DTI right now is doing a valorization of resources. And in regards to insects, fermentation is a really, really big topic. So as I mentioned, one of the things is that you need to secure feed, but you also need to have low value feeds. One of those is with high, for example, fat content or high fibrous content, which to some extent is not usable or wanted for the insects, or at least for the black soldier fly. So by doing fermentation or pre-treatment, whether it's enzymatic or it's by bacterial treatment, we are actually able to valorize these resources even more, so they're usable for the insect producers. And so far, we had great experience, for example, with the Bruce Bank grain, olive pomace, and whatnot, improving these products so they can be highly utilized in insect rearing. And I think this is really important for the insect industry as well, because this makes it more competitive compared to, for example, biogas. Good. So just quickly that we do, of course, a lot of GHG emission tests where we measure everything from ammonia to CO2 to formic acid, whatnot, and as well looking energy profile, climate profile. And as well, we have a big project called Ento-Power, which actually one of the other presenters, Better Insect Solution, is a part of as well, where we look into energy savings on the AVAX system. So this is definitely one of the things that we at DTI look very much forward to, is then we need to look into, let's say, bottom waste products. So this is biopulp from food waste, it's wastewater sludge treatment, it's valorization of manure, and I'm well aware of that this is not approved in any way and probably not going to be, but we are going to take a different approach to look at insects as a biofilter instead. So not in food and feed, but more using insects as a biological tool to clean our waste streams, so that we have a clean fresh, for example, we can utilize in the agriculture, but the insects should be used for other purposes, for example, like biogas, or should be used for energy or other kinds of materials. What we have seen so far is that the insects are really good at selecting the substrate and cleaning for microplastic, PFAS, and so on. So it's something that we find very interesting in the future to look more into. Yes, so I'll just leave this here, and of course this is a little bit of advertisement, but we are at DTI, we are doing a lot of projects, both ongoing, but also some of them are already done and finished, you can find on our homepage. But if there's anything in regards to what I mentioned here or on the list here that is interesting, please reach out, and we always look forward to creating some new interesting R&D projects, definitely. And I am done, and I think I was a little bit below time. Hopefully, is my feeling.
Yeah.
So I haven't checked, but yeah.
No, you did excellent, Mats. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so we can hand over to Garrett, and
yeah, thank you. Normally, Mr. Feldhaus would be here and present this presentation. Unfortunately, he cannot attend today, so because he's occupied with another project on short notice, so I hold his presentation, but I hope I can bring his points. I would like to introduce a few Veda products and give some information about the whole insect rearing. So I will start with the innovation solutions for modern barn and feeding technology. Here we can see the company, just short about Veda. It's stayed in Lutten, family owned by Mr. Clemens Westerkamp and Jutta Sextro, and we are still professional in the pig housing and farming. That's where we come from, and now we are a little bit more working in the insect field. We have here in Lutten our development and our production by 150 employees, and we exist over 80 years at all. We bring our products worldwide we represent it in 50 countries worldwide. And yeah, so in the next slide, we can see that Veda is already in the insect business. We had our first contact in 2017 with a black soldier fly, and we optimized our feeding system for the substrate for feeding the black soldier fly, and this will be my main point today. We also do the climate, but that's another point. Next slide, please. Here we can see at the first our research and development plant. It's a pilot plant here, where we start the development we have an 8-corner tank with a parallel system, so we can dose out continuously the feed for the insects. This is for the KISS handling very important, that it just can go on, and we can scale up so easily large systems. A parallel system means that we fill up the first tank, mix it, and then we feed the first tank while the second tank is also filled up and mixed. And then the two tanks can change, that the second tank feeds and the first tank get filled and mixed again. On the next slide, please, we can see then a bigger plant of Veda, which we built. This plant, the short plant before, can handle 10 tons of substrate per day. The bigger plant can handle 130 tons per day easily. Here we can see also an parallel system. Here we work with 3 tanks, so we have more time to mix the feed. This means one tank dosed out the feed continuously, and the other tanks have enough time to mix the feed. And this is really important, that we've got homogeneous feed, that every box or every crate in the feeding system has the same quality and quantity of feed. So we can dose out in every box the same amount of larvae, and we can earn or harvest of every box the same amount of larvae. And this is for the process handling very important. Furthermore, we have here 3 pre-mixing tanks where we can fill in liquid components, and we pre-mix them first so we can work faster in the whole process. We've got a cutter, agitator, and a macerator, but to that later. The next slide is about the feeding system. It's our Veda Intrix dosing station, and we can see here the crates. They come from the left side and get filled just in 20 seconds, and then the farmer can set the quantity between 5 and 10 kilos. This is, at some projects a little bit different. Important is that there are not too much feed in one box, that the larvae can work the feed really good. And we can also handle with our products, with our dosing station, feed with a dry matter content from over 30%, and that's really good, because if the feed is too wet, it's hardly to get the frost dry and to harvest the insects. At the next point, we can add wheat bran. So even if we have liquid or more liquid feed, we can add some wheat bran, and the dry matter content in the crates at the end is optimal too. And then on this conveyor, we can, at the last step, fill in the larvae in the crates. And then we can bring the crates in the fattening room with optimal climate condition for 7 days or whatever the process is optimized for, to get them grown up. Next slide, please. Now there are some products from us. I don't want to go too much into detail. Here are some different types of tanks. Very big tanks, stainless steel tanks with a value between 500 and 25,000 liters. These tanks are not optimal for the dry or for feed which has a really high content, a dry matter content. There we can see our optimized tank for the larvae. These tanks have the 8 corners, which I said soon, and these tanks just have amount or volume from 500 to 1,000 liters. The fermentation, already said in the last presentation, is a really good thing for a better digestion of the feed and also the nutrients are much better absorbed by the insects, and we need less energy for the digestion. Here we are working in a batch process, so just to short to the technical point of a fermentation, we have batch processes and we add laced bacteria, laced active bacteria in a feed with a temperature of 36 to 40 degrees. So over 24 hours, the feed can ferment and then we can feed it. So we have here the same as in our batch process of the mixing. We fill up one tank, let it ferment one day, can feed it, while the other tank is fermenting. And so the important points here are that we work with a lower or with a slow running agitator, that we've got not so much oxygen in the feed because that's not so good for the bacteria. They are anaerobe, and the microbial population in the feed mixture reduce so the pH value that the feed is stable. And this is a mesurator that we can crush larger components, because it's important that the feed sizes are slow. If they are too big, the insects can't handle it very well. So if it's smaller, the insects can take it better. These are our pumps. Here is an eccentric pump. Hope you see that, yeah. Where we can dose out very precisely even dry feed. And this is a big point I called. This is no problem with this big pump. And for liquid or for more liquid feed, we have on the next slide a centrifugal pump. It's also a Veda self-made production. And yeah, next slides, we can go a little bit faster to these products now. These are agitators. This is the slow running agitator, for example, the fermentation or bigger premixing tanks that we have a homogenized feed to feed it to the insects. Is a little bit more interesting. Here is an SRW agitator. It's a fast running cutting agitator. So if we get food waste or other byproducts like fruits and vegetables, the most we can handle in a big tank with an SRW agitator to cut it small. And so we can render the feed components on smaller size. And if we take this feed against through a mesurator and pump it in circle, we can have a very homogeneous, very nice little or small feed that the insects are working better on it. This is a pretty nice product of Veda. It's a highlight. It's a proven UV light that reduce gums and bacteria, also fungi and yeasts in the tanks for a more homogenized feed, because the insects are still 7 days in the feed. They can handle everything, even not so pretty good feed, but if it's more, it's not really, or it's safe, because we can switch it off, so there are no risks for people or the plant. And I'm nearly at the end. It's our process program, our excellent 4PX computer. It's easy to handle and to control the whole insect harvesting process. We can connect it with the Veda Farm 4PX and with the air condition, so we can see easily how the larvae are growing and how the process is working. Please, the next slide. Can you play this video, hopefully? Yeah, and that was my last point. Thanks for your attention. And if there are questions, feel free to ask. Best way is to ask Mr. Feldhaus. He's the contact person from Via Insects. And yeah, hope I could bring his points. And yeah.
Just
Thank you, Garrett.
yeah, thank you, Garrett. First of all, the phone number, just to you, this is a German phone number, so you need to dial 0049 to access Mr. Feldhaus. Thank you, Garrett. And as Arthur said, we will take the video, and in the download area, you will have the video available, so you can take a look at that. I'm handing over now to Lars to speak about his topics, and so thank you again, and we go on.
Thank you, Bernd. Thank you, Arthur, also for the invitation to give an overview of insect farming from a Better Insect Solutions perspective. I will try today to focus on the rearing, as is the topic of the webinar. Better Insect Solutions is part of the Big Dutchman Group, as was mentioned initially. We are a Germany-based family-owned business of approximately 4,000 employees globally, with locations in most major regions. This is also something we leverage from the Better Insect Solutions company, that together with our sister companies, Big Dutchman, InnoPlus, and SCOF, we can reach out globally to wherever your insect project is, as well as tapping into the large network of service partners that we have in these clusters. So we overall cover all the life stages of the black soldier fly with our technology solution. Our value proposition covers this. Just showing here, most of you are surely familiar with the life cycle of the black soldier fly, but I've just put here the different stages that we cover from a farming perspective, having unique chambers or compartments, sections or houses, whatever you like to call it, that ensure that you can connect all the dots throughout the life cycle. We also cover a variety of major business models, which goes hand in hand with the life cycle. That we cover so-called full liner operations, which have both flies and hence the breeding and nursery and grow out sections in the same site, just as we support projects which are focusing on just breeding or on the growing or rearing of the larvae to final product. I've shown here a mass balance for a 20,000 ton wet larvae per year operation. This is, of course, a rather large operation. I would say that our projects right now span from 100 tons of wet larvae per year to 100 tons of wet larvae per day. So this is quite a range. I will get back to the large end of that range in the final slide with showing one of the major projects that we are working on right now. But it does require a lot of different things to play together in order to be able to deliver a full insect project, whether it's 100 tons of larvae per year or per day. And it's also quite a complex operation in general to get an insect project up and running to do rearing of larvae, whether or not you include breeding too. This is why our value proposition is to take the client by the hand from day one, ensuring that this will be a good journey. Because there's more than just technology which is involved in this becoming a success. If we focus here in the center of the diagram, the technology is centered around the farming part, around the processing part. But if you do not have, as we discussed and was brought up in previous talks here in this webinar, if you do not have control over your feedstock, and you don't have a good plan for securing that you get significant supply on a daily basis for year round, then you have a big problem. Also, if you have no clue of which markets to target with your end products, then you also have a big problem. This is what we help our clients to close the gap between the technology and the entry and the exit, so to speak. So we start by working, also bringing in external consultants. Could be DTI, for instance, on some screening of feed substrates to evaluate their applicability as being part of a larger project. Could be other consultancies, agencies to be involved. We also do some consultancy ourselves based on the know-how that we do have in insect farming, which is also part of our overall value proposition, that we know how the larvae or the flies, how can I say, respond in a farming environment. We bring this know-how into insect farming. This is standing on the shoulders, you could say, of the 80 years that the Big Dutchman Group has worked with animal farming, with a lot of different technologies that is needed and used within that space. So eventually, hopefully, you stand with a commercial operation where you have some good management and standard operating procedures that we will fine-tune with you for your local project, that you can ensure good traceability throughout your supply chain, and also document your sustainability, because I think this is something which is being said a lot in the insect sector, but it's also important that we can put our mouth where our money is and show that we are actually quite a sustainable industry. Today, I will focus primarily on the rearing part, and there's already been a lot said regarding feed systems with liquid feeding systems from Veda. Not that how can I say, different from how we do feeding as well. Standing on a platform of experience and know-how from liquid feed systems for pigs. Also, I won't say much about automation and logistics, because Jasper from Viscon, whom we work with, will surely be able to say a lot more about this than me. And also the processing and Frans I will not handling today, because you should tune into the webinar next time on 5th of May, where there will be a lot on processing. So I will cover the first few points here on the right-hand side of this diagram. We are bringing together a lot of in-house technology from the Big Dutchman Group that is delivered via Better Insect Solutions as the insect hub, the insect company of the group, where we are leveraging, although it has taken a lot of optimization and adaptation, we are taking a lot of farming equipment and making it applicable for insects. And I will show an example in the end on where we are there. But it is our ambition to be able to provide you a end-to-end solution on the farming and processing, so that, as it was said in the previous slide, we are your one-stop hub for getting a project up and running, so that you can reduce the number of complexity regarding working with a lot of different, but having one partner that takes care of this, working together with a few key partners, like from logistics, for instance. Some of you that might be from the farming background will see that our building design is overall very much farming orientated, even though insect rearing, it's normally large scale that we are talking about in general, particularly when you compare it with a poultry production or pig production. Even 100 tons of larvae per year, it's the same as 1,000 pigs. So it easily becomes large farms that we're talking about, and they look quite, at least in our philosophy, they look quite like other animal farms. There's a lot of the philosophy from animal farming, how you manage the farm, how you make sure that the transition of the larvae from nursery into rearing and therefrom into processing, that it has a certain flow, and this flow needs to be implemented already in the building design. What, as all of you know, is very much different than for pig and poultry. Once you take off the hood of the farm, then you start getting the logistics that show up as quite an important part of being able to handle all the crates that are involved, and that's the way we do the housing. So we have there are different crates on the market. We have for various reasons decided to design our own crates. Firstly, for this to tap into the farm management, which I was just explaining, that the larvae need different type of crate when they are in a neonate life stage, whereas when they grow bigger, not least from the climate perspective, in order to be able to climatize, to ensure good climate system, good climate conditions for the larvae, there are different requirements for the crates. You can actually see it here on the picture that the head space between the crates for the air that can move through, it's much bigger in the larger crate, because here we need to move more air through because there is just so much heat production coming from the larvae. So in order to be able to do this in a uniform and robust way, so that you get a good product coming out in the other end, and I completely agree with Garrett, it needs to be uniform feed as well, which is applied, because if you have too big differences in feed in your crates, even with the best climate system, you cannot create uniform conditions in there. So you need to keep these things constant. Homogeneous feed, homogeneous climate system, and good infrastructure or housing that will enable that the different parameters go up in higher unity. So basically what we do, we keep the neonates for as long as possible in these nursery crates. They are relatively small, 40 by 30 centimeters, 10 centimeters high. Once they cannot stay in that anymore because they simply take up all the space, we tip these crates directly into the grow-out crate to make sure that the larvae get a smooth transition from one segment, the nursery, into the next segment. And this also saves you easily 1 day of production, which 1 day out of 14, that's right on the bottom line, making more profit. And this is important for you to be able also to have more throughput in your farm, and hence get an even better return on investment. We also have housing for breeding, for flies, but today the rearing was the topic, so I didn't include this. In the next slide, you will see an overview of a standard grow-out house section based on our technology, our different subsystems, piecing this together to a full solution on the rearing. But the slide also shows that apart from applying a new type of pigsty or infrastructure for the animals, in this case the larvae with the crates, the houses look very much like if it was a poultry house or a pig house, although the climate system is much more advanced when it comes to this. I mean, you cannot just put crates into a poultry house and expect, like for broilers, and expect that you will get a good climatization at crate level. It's all about making sure that at every single crate, no matter where in the stack or which stack where they are growing, that you get uniform conditions. We are making use of using humidification and heating and fans from pig and poultry farming that we've been working with for years. We know that these components are durable, they are cost effective, but we have redesigned this and put a lot of effort into ensuring that the system can provide, the climate system can provide a uniform and robust climate, that you get this same output, or at least with reasonable variation from crate to crate. Also, we spend a lot of time on designing new controller software for the insect climate system, and also working on production management systems. So today we have something which is in operation and commercially viable. If we take the next slide, there's a lot of hot air that goes out of such a rearing facility, particularly during the rearing, where the larvae have massive heat production. We're talking about that every layer of crate is the equivalent of one broiler house per layer of crate. So basically we have 16 broiler houses under the same roof here. And there's a lot of heat that can be salvaged and can be reused in the farming operation, and which is of great value. This is showing from our sister company InnoPlus, their solution for heat recovery, where this is from a pig house, but the technology here is very plug and play actually. Doesn't really care if it's hot air from larvae or from pigs that come out. There's a great potential on recycling as well as cleaning the outgoing air through an air to water scrubber. And we can, in the most advanced version, where we also have heat pumps on top of the heat exchanger you see here, we can actually recycle 200% of the heat needed to run the farming part. So the climate system for the different larvae. So there's a lot of potential in becoming self-sustainable on the heating part. Then maybe with a biogas facility or some solar panels, you can also do that on the electricity. I think these are overall important things to consider. Of course, it has higher capex, but you will also benefit on the OPEX, I can tell you. I think this is also one of the narratives from insects, that there is a great potential for leveraging the energy coming from the larvae. I guess you can call it bioenergy or BSF energy. This is the final slide. So this is from the largest project we're working on at the moment, Enorm Biofactory in Denmark. We started out in the lower right part of this picture in the 2 old broiler houses, which were converted into a pilot operation, where we validated and optimized all our major systems that we are implementing in this project, that being the liquid feeding system, the climate system, the crates, the breeding, heat recovery and air cleaning. And now we're in the middle of scaling this up together with Enorm, where this will be completed by the end of this year, and then starting to produce 100 tons of larvae per day. We have already parts of this up and running. The pupa sections, intermediate nursery, and the fly section are in operation. And then the back part there, the biggest block of the picture in the upper right, that is the grow out sections, which will be finished later this year. So as I said, from 100 tons per year to 100 tons per day. Rearing of larvae is possible at quite a range of scale. I think better leave it here and then pass it on to Jasper.
Thank you very much, Lars. Very
Thanks a lot.
interesting insight. And yeah, currently we are running a little bit more than 15 minutes late, so I hand it over directly to Jasper to talk about automation.
Thanks, Bernd. So a little bit about myself. I'm Jasper. I was a business developer at Viscon, but as of this year, I'm the commercial manager for the insect team within Viscon. At first, we worked on some projects as Viscon in the insect market, and well, as of recently, the interest is so big and there is so much to do. We decided let's get some full attention on this market and have a dedicated team as well to work on this market. So a little bit about the company. So I work at Viscon. We do basically factory automation in agri-food markets. So what does this mean? Well, we do a lot of automation of processes in, for example, the greenhouse industry. In the Netherlands, we have a major cluster of greenhouses. So this is basically where our company originated from. And from that onwards, we started to do also automation processes in other markets, all related to, yeah, let's say agri-food business. So at the moment, for example, next to insect farming, we're also heavily involved in vertical farming. So growing crops vertically in deserts, for example. So it's all, yeah, we're in a nice spot of the market, indoor farming solutions, food storage solutions in warehouses, that kind of stuff. And around 2014, we started in the insect industry when Protex approached us to start cooperating with them on their first demo, on their first pilot plant. So we already started automating that in 2015. And then in 2018, we worked also on the industrial side of theirs. And since then, we've done some other projects as well in this insect space. And we really see the interest, the amount of companies active increasing by the month. So that's good news for us and for the industry. So on the next slide, I will tell you a bit more on why automation of farms is interesting. And I want to stress that we focus on the logistics side of the processes. So you have some building blocks in the farms. Like today, we discuss climate systems, feeding systems, processing systems. We focus basically on connecting all these processes by means of crate handling and pallet handling logistics. And obviously, one of the reasons then to ask yourself is, why would you do that automatically? Well, basically, if you go to large scale, it basically becomes inevitable to do such processes by hand. But obviously, there's also on a smaller scale, it already becomes interesting. And I want to stress, next to achieving bigger scale facilities, it's also interesting from a matter of plant control. Automating your processes next to it allowing you to increase your scale of your facility with less people involved, to do that fully automatically. It also helps you to increase your plant control. Like was stated in the beginning, you want to have a consistent quality, a consistent output. And when you let machines basically do the work, you have just less opportunity for risks to emerge, for faults to emerge. And you can also, let's say, calculate how much you will produce on a given day compared to when you would have human involvement, which is just a little less calculated, to be honest. So in that sense, it gives you plant control. It also gives you the opportunity to control your plant, to control your operations from behind your desk. You can basically organize your production orders for a certain day in the morning, for example, and then just track how the factory is doing all the work. It saves you a lot in management effort and gives some peace of mind. So what do we do in our portfolio? As I mentioned before, we focus on crate and pallet handling. We also, from our warehouse portfolio, basically we offer single and multi-level storage solutions. To the right, you see a shuttle-based system that we apply in this industry, but we can also introduce, for example, AGVs, which are basically forklifts without a person on top of it. On top of that, we also offer cleaning solutions for crates. What we've experienced in many of the indoor farming markets that we're active in, and also in the insect industry, is that you want to clean your crate each cycle that you've used it. So after harvesting, we directly include a crate cleaning solution, and that after that, the crate can be filled again with feed and with insects before it moves into the storage area. So we do that fully in line, integrate that fully in line. We have our own line of machines for that. And when you're talking about reproduction, you also have grids that you use in that sense. We also have washing solutions for grids. So all in all, these kind of processes can be automated as well. And on top of that, we offer frass and larvae conveying solutions, and we can also integrate various sieving technology. So you can, in the end, we can deliver a complete, let's say, logistics solution towards the processing area, towards the feeding area, feeding stations, towards the storage areas with the climate systems. And in order to do that, we have obviously a software team to make sure everything talks to each other, everything connects to each other, and all the data can be provided to the central computers of the factory. So we tend to see in insect farms, this is a BSF farm then, that you underestimate, you make a distinction between a nursery phase and a rearing phase. We basically can do all the logistics. In that sense, we couple to a feeding system. So we bring a crate underneath a feeding system in a nursery area to a larvae dosing system, and then basically stack the crates on top of each other and move them automatically to the storage area where the climatization is taking place. And then after a few days, like Lars also explained in his graph, you go towards the next phase where you either tip the content of that crate, or whether you have a different crate setup, we can somehow in a different way make sure that content is moving towards the next phase. And then after each cycle, obviously we do the harvesting, so we can tip the crates on top of bulk conveying system towards sievers and towards the processing areas basically, and then the flow back of crates through the crate washer. So you can really make this let's say a loop of crates going through your factory without basically needing any people to be interfere with that process. Just people on top who control the process. What we often do, well, always do when we talk to clients in the area, is to identify their needs, obviously, and do a design of such a layout based on the requirements of the client. So does the client already have a building? Is it a brownfield location, or can we help the client to basically make the layout for their facility and get some input for their building design. So eventually we designed the system, we designed the complete layout for the logistics system. We also build the machines ourselves, and then we integrate all the solutions with each other. And as mentioned before, we can also integrate them with various different suppliers. So I want to give you some input from what we experience and some takeaways for you to take with you when you start developing your plant or in the middle of your thinking process. So one of the first things, obviously, that matters to us is whether you grow mealworms or whether you grow BSFs. So we supply solutions for both. And for example, one of the major differences between the two is for mealworms, given the way longer life cycle, you have a lot more storage in your facilities. So we tend to see that for mealworms, you often go vertical. So you store your crates onto multiple layers, which would also then require a sort of, let's say, a vertical storage system when you would go for larger scale facilities. And another thing that is interesting from the perspective of mealworms is that you can basically automate your entire reproduction cycle as well, as the beetles don't fly away, so they can remain within that crate, and we can do some smart stuff to make sure we automate that process as well. That's an interesting one. What also matters, obviously, is the scale of your facility. So typically we can handle around, like, let's say 400 to 500 crates per hour over one line, and depending on your crate that you're using and the type of the number of insects you put into that you aim to harvest in that crate, you can calculate what you can do in that sense. So if clients have a certain objective in terms of their production, we start with, let's say, a standard line, make sure it connects with a feeding system, for example. So we calculate how many crates we can run through the system per hour, and then based on the requirements, we add multiple lines next to each other, for example, to reach that capacity. What we also see in the market is still a lot of variety in terms of how companies grow their insects. So the number of refeeds, for example, operating hours, all that kind of stuff impacts the amount of handling going on in your facility. So these are the things that we need to talk about to make sure your factory will be able to reach your goals. And also when it comes to automation, the cost of labor obviously is important. So we help you create your business case in that sense and make sure you make the right decisions. And one other thing I want to stress is the crates. So if you go towards automation, you need to take into account that your crate is strong enough for automation machinery. So the design of your crate is always something that you need to that needs to be checked by your automation partner, because it has to be strong enough to withstand machinery. So this is a key takeaway I think you should take with you. So then something on some tips for growing your farm. So when you would have a small operation where it's like 1 ton of production per day, I would say go with a robot that can do multiple things at the same time. So either it can do the stacking, the destacking of crates, put the crate towards a feeding system, do the tipping of the crate. When you have low capacities going on, I would advise to do that. And once your capacity increases, you can use robots, for example, to still do the destacking and the tipping, but then add other machinery to do some other stuff. For example, bringing the crates towards the feeding system and then stacking the crates on top of each other. And I would say in a small situation, like was stated before, try to keep it simple, single level storage, use your manual forklift, and no need to automate that if it's not the volume to invest in some automation there. So once you go to larger scale facilities, once you go towards the scale of let's say 10 tons of wet larvae per day, but already at 5 tons per day as well, I would say, then it becomes interesting to start looking at especially the rearing side of things, to do that fully automatically, but also obviously integrating the nursery area in that automation becomes more relevant the larger you get. And I would say and then it's just from an automation perspective, once you deploy a line, it has a certain capacity that you can run over such a line. So it would be a shame if you have a system operating that you only utilize it for like 30% or so. So I would always advise to look at from a technology perspective what is possible, and then play with that in terms of setting your goals in terms of how much you want to produce. So it's really a conversation that you can have with a company like us and with other companies to define, okay, what is the basic set of technology that we can use, and how much can I grow with this to make it as smart as possible in terms of investing.
Yes, but we are running right off time. We need to
Yes,
speed up. Sorry.
this is this was my last sentence that I wanted to share with you guys. The slide is still not on the deck,
Yeah.
but well, like I said before, when you go to large-scale facilities, I would also start to do the transport of crates of pallets automatically. So either use shuttle-based systems or AGVs for that. And yeah, like I mentioned before, making sure all that information is integrated, all that data is integrated, which also allows you to do track and trace of your entire plant. That's extremely important if you want to go towards big major clients who want to have predictive output, want to have traceability of your output, and want to have a given production level every day. Then software becomes a big part of your solution as well. So let me leave it with that then, Bernd. Thanks for the warning. And if you guys want to talk further on this topic, do not hesitate to come back to me.
Thank you very much, Jasper. Okay, so last one is on Arthur. Arthur, yeah, we are already overrunning the planned time frame, so please go ahead and walk people through the slides.
Thank you, Bernd. So regarding the timeline, well noted. One quick remark before I jump into the presentation. So we are running a little bit out of time. That's clear, but still we have on the agenda our Q&A. So please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A section, just to make sure that we cover them after the speech. And as I mentioned, we will synchronize the slides with the speakers later on, so you can recap that, so we don't lose any information there. So on the last webinar, I had the pleasure to speak a little bit about CapEx and OpEx. And since we thought that might be interesting for you guys, we thought, okay, let's have a second session focusing a little bit more on the OpEx side, on the substrate. And we already had some nice insights in this session about the importance of substrate, and now we will also focus on the importance of substrate linked to the operational costs. So just a quick recap from what we concluded, or at least what I concluded from the first webinar. Very good. So a quick recap, as I mentioned. So when jumping into a project, we need to get to some, let's say, initial numbers, and these numbers can come from multiple sources, can come from conversations or webinars like this, or forum discussions at ento-connect.com, or from other areas. So basically, when we speak about the operational costs, it's crucial to make sure that the economical aspect fits. So that means we have to look at the CapEx and OpEx also in relation to revenue. And we also have to be sure that we are pretty careful with our assumptions, like Matt mentioned earlier. So it makes sense not to rely on, let's say, on a single source, and also not to rely on a single assumption, but to make sure that you have, let's say, plan B, C, and D in line. And to summarize what we've seen last time, that the substrate in this example that I've shown you, so obviously business cases are completely different. You can see that the substrate cost can be a major block in the overall calculation. So therefore, it absolutely makes sense to look very closely into that. So beside the substrate, we have the climatization and some other areas, but following Pareto, you should really focus on the big blocks here. So let's speak a little bit more about the substrate in general. So hopefully in a bit you will see our very high level calculation tool that we have on the website. So that slide is about to illustrate you the importance of the substrate in terms of the mass balance and also in terms of the OpEx. So we see that in comparison to a relatively small amount of end product that we are gaining, for example, the insect meal, the insect fat, we have to put in a significant amount of wet substrate. And therefore, if we put a price tag to that, we really have to look closer on, let's say, how to get this price tag down or how to control this process further. So basically, so as we've seen, the volume is relatively big, and since the volume is relatively big, also transportation plays a significant role. So this number was displaying as the amount of wet substrate. So depending on what kind of availability you have, you can get it in as a wet basis. So when it comes from breweries, for example, it will be very likely it will be wet because they would like to save on the drying step. In other examples, it can be dry, so you have to add some water, so the transport is at least a little bit less relevant. But what we can conclude here in general is that the price range for substrates is a pretty wide range. So in some applications or projects, we see a range from free of charge or even getting some revenue for this disposal. In other cases, we see that obviously it has a price tag, and this is how the market works. So when a market is developing and the clients are requesting this product, then obviously some money is transferred from A to B. And also what Mats mentions, it's always, you know, a trade-off between quality and quantity. So you have to decide between the performance and costs mostly. So that means if you have a high performance, the costs in most of the cases is relatively high. In some cases you're lucky and both is working well. But let's conclude that this is the logical approach here. And as we can see, that has a big impact on the OPEX. It's really crucial that you are very careful with the substrate that you pick, and also with the pricing. This can have a really big impact on your overall business case. So beside the OPEX, also the CAPEX plays a role. So what we've seen, for example, the Veda equipment is that depending on what kind of substrate you're using, the machinery or the overall setup of the installation can vary a lot. So depending on whether it's dry, whether it's wet, whether you have an inhomogeneously mixture that you have to bring down to a pumpable fluid. This impacts a lot on the capex that you have to spend there. Another aspect is also the storage volume. So as we heard earlier, running out of substrate is not a good thing in the overall operation. In order to avoid that, you can have contracts with your suppliers. But you can also have your internal storage volume, because a contract is nice, but if the other party is not able to fulfill the contract for whatever reasons, it doesn't help you a lot to insist on the contract. If the substrate is away, then it's away. And on the other end, if there is a fluctuation, then you should also consider investing in, let's say, a more or less complex analytic equipment that gives you more insights on the composition, more insights on the fluctuation that you have, since this will also impact the biological output or the overall KPIs of the facility. So what kind of, let's say, major challenges do we have? So it is really important to find a suitable substrate that fits economical and biological aspects. In order to run a stable process, variation in the process is always very tricky, but you cannot avoid this variation. Therefore, so it's important to get a good understanding and feeling about this variation. And we still see that there is a big dynamics on the market. So that means that the supply market is developing together with the industry, and therefore we have to see what comes first, what moves first, or the supply market or the demand market. And so if you get a good understanding of what is happening, you can try at least to predict more or less what will happen in the next stages. And to come to an end, some quick take-home messages for you. So as I mentioned, with the assumptions, especially for this big block of costs, you have to be really, really careful and always look for multiple sources for substrate, multiple sources for the pricing, for the availability. That is really key. Yeah, also the logistics, that's an important topic. So whether you will be supplied daily, whether you will establish your own stock, these are really important business decisions that you have to make. And ideally, you are looking for a product that is relatively cheap and that is not in competition with other markets, since this impacts that the price tag will not be that high. But this is also, let's say, thriving the spirit of the insect industry, that we use products that are, let's say, less attractive for other markets and convert them into really high valuable products like the meal, the fat, the frass, and some other products that we can gain. And last but not least, so we will have 4 more webinar series coming up, including the lessons learned from our today's session. So therefore, we can highly encourage you to follow these along, where we speak about the other topics as well. So thanks a lot. And now we reach the point for the Q&As.
We are coming to the Q&A session. I'd like to keep it very short, and I noted down 3 questions which we quickly can cover. One is coming from Fabio, and I think that will go in the direction maybe to Mats or to the other speakers. In terms of emissions, what is the comparison with pre-fermented and not fermented? Mats, can you give a comment, or somebody else? It's coming from Fabio. We wanted to know whether non-fermented or pre-fermented, what is the difference from an emission perspective?
Yes, and of course that's a very, very complex question to answer, because it really much depends on the substrate we are talking about. But in general, I would expect that when you ferment, you get more accessible. So in your production, you will have a better FCR, so you get more out of what you put in, less emission or less lost. For example, with brew-spent grain, we know there's a lot of ammonia emission because of the protein that is not digestible for the black soldier fly, for example. So by pre-treating this and making the protein more accessible to the insect, the results are that we get less emission in that sense. But of course, this is very complex, because emission, are we just talking about ammonia? Are we talking CO2? Are we talking NOx gases? Are we talking formic acid? So there's a lot of different compounds we need to take into account, and as well the different substrates we're talking about. I hope that was not too complex of an answer, at least.
So the topic is indeed very, very complex.
Yeah.
But I think it was clear from that perspective.
But Fabio mentioned, thank you to you, Mats. I think he's happy with the answers. There are 2 questions coming from Joaf. First one, can you also those 2 crates. Let me just say, can you also accurately and quickly dose to crates wet feed, approximately 70% moisture, but not pumpable? I think that goes in Veda and the technology provider, to Lars, Jasper.
Yeah, I can say you can, but there's also a matter of speed. I mean, if it's not pumpable and you apply it by auger or something like this, it may not be quick enough if you have a certain size of operation that you can get the feed into the crates before the next crate would come. So there are a lot of advantages. I'm sure Gerrit will nod to this in using a liquid feed system for black soldier fly production, that is specifically.
Okay. And the last one, as well from Joaf, do you have any experience with using frass as fish feed? Mats, you're smiling. Any answer on that?
Yeah. So first of all, I've seen some studies on it as well, and we had some small experience with it. And actually, what we saw was that, again, complex answer maybe, but depending on how well utilized the feed is from the black-shouldered fly, of course, there are some things that are left in the frass that fish are actually able to use. But just from honest opinion, I don't think it's really the right place for the frass. But yeah, I have seen some promising, or at least it can be done from my perspective. But that's, again, not something we have done at DTI, I would say.
Absolutely interesting question. I can also comment a little bit on that. I also think that it strongly depends on how well digested it is on the structure. So since we speak of aquaculture, it also depends, let's say, on the structure, or the density, the weight, how quickly or how slowly it will sink down, and what kind of aquacultural species it will address. But I can also confirm that the product is valuable if it is, let's say, processed in the right way. That there are other markets that are by far more superior than this market. But anyhow, it's interesting to think a little bit out of the box to see what else you can do with the products.
Okay, so given the time, I'd like to close the Q&A sessions. As I said, if you have further questions, feel free to go into the forums, raise those questions, and our speakers will have a look and can provide answers. So, thank you very much to everybody for attending this session. As said in the beginning, and as I have seen that some people joined later, again, the information, the registration of the webinar will be made available on our website in the media section, so you can see and re-listen the registration, or let some other people from your company or on your network know that they can listen to prior sessions and to these sessions on our website. Secondly, I'd like to say thank you for the audience to participate and showing your interest and keep things and discussions going. I will be sending out as well a survey to the participants, and it would be really, really great if you can provide us some feedback. I think besides some technical topics, we need to address further interest of the people. And so you are the ones who give us some directions, which topics you are interested in, so we can incorporate that in future webinars. Yeah, lessons learned, just to summarize, and I learned as well a lot, is I think one thing is really important, and Arthur mentioned that already in the last webinar. I think planning is key. Not just jump into it, do a proper planning, talk to the right people, talk to the right companies. Second, I would summarize is keep a look at the costs and the cost key drivers. And one of them we covered today very intensively, which is substrate, in counting for that. And last one, given from my experience as well, I think first about the process before you think about the technology. Because if you can eliminate certain steps in the process, you don't have to implement technology. So process is key as well. So thank you very much. I'd like to wrap up, and I'm glad that we have so many people listening to us, and I'm glad that we had such great speakers, and the feedback I'm seeing in the chat on the speakers, I'd like to pass on if the speakers haven't seen that. So people are really, really happy about the speakers, and so I'm looking forward for future webinars and having you all on board, and having as well the team's problems and issues solved for the next time. Okay, thank you very much and have a nice weekend. That's it so far from my side. Anybody a last word? No. So we can say thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So see you on 5th of May. That might be the last words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.